If you own a buy-to-let property at the moment, or you are considering getting into the market, then one of the biggest problems that landlords are facing at the moment, amongst many, to be fair, is affordability. And to be fair, landlords at the moment are probably being given a pretty tough deal. You probably feel like you're constantly having to shell out cash for things like EPCs and improvements and the tax changes and all those sorts of things. But right now, it's even more difficult because affordability is even harder. That is making uh, that is causing landlords not being able to remortgage, so they can't actually get either release any more money, or they can't actually get anything, or move on to a better deal with a different lender, because according to the lender, then it just doesn't make enough profit. Now, in reality, that's madness, because as we all know, there is still scope for property to do really well. So in today's video, we're going to talk about top slicing. What is it? How does it work? And how does it improve affordability? Meaning that you can either remortgage, or you could potentially even get more money out of the property that you've already got. So let's get in and discuss that. So buy-to-let mortgages, and in particularly top slicing. What is it? What are the pros and cons? And more importantly, how does it all work? Okay, so first of all, what is a buy-to-let mortgage, and what in particular is a top slicing mortgage? Well, buy-to-let, we know, is a mortgage that you use in order to purchase a property, which you then go on to rent out. So you can generally put a deposit down of currently it's around 25%. But the biggest problem we're getting at the moment is when it comes to rental income, especially for those properties that are more higher value. So, sort of around London or the southeast, that sort of thing. Then we're finding that there's just not enough rental in order to get up to borrow the amount that you need. So top slicing basically allows you to use your income in order to make up the difference. Okay. So essentially what we do is, if you look at a sort of standard residential mortgage, then that's based on affordability. And affordability is where we take your income into account and we look at your outgoings. So, as a general rule, you need to be earning reasonably decent money for this to work, but not always. And I'll explain why. So, the way that we consider it is we look at what you're earning and we take out what you're paying out. So, for example, your existing debts, so loans, credit cards, anything that's unsecured, and we also look at your existing mortgage. So, if you've got a very low existing mortgage and very low debts, or no debts at the minute, then you might have a better chance of borrowing more money than, for example, even if you're on a decent salary. If you then had a high mortgage, a high mortgage payment, the flash cars and expensive cars, all that type of stuff, then actually it may affect your borrowing, in being able to do this. But ultimately, we're using this more and more at the moment in order to top up the borrowing. And you can use that to remortgage onto a better rate, or you can use it to raise money, or generally both. Now, as ever, there's pros and cons to everything. So the idea of this video is to kind of go through it and explain what these are. Now, I've put this in here just a kind of a reminder for me more than anything, because I always forget to mention this. So everything I'm going to discuss today is also available as a secured loan or a second charge. So if you've got reason to leave your existing mortgage exactly where it is, so if it's in a fixed rate at the moment, or actually you can go on to a really good deal without remortgaging, then you could potentially look at a second charge or a secured loan, and use the top slicing to get a bigger loan amount and leave the existing mortgage where it is. So everything we talk about today is potentially also available on a secured loan. Okay, so let's sort of have a look at this. So this is the advantages. So if we're talking about advantages of secured loans, then I should try that again. If we're talking about advantages of buy-to-let top slicing, the obvious one is increased borrowing power. If you've got the income to be able to back it up, then you should be able to borrow more money compared to a standard buy-to-let mortgage that is purely based on the rental income. Now, there's different sort of stress tests that go into this. So, like I explained at the beginning, we will look at your outstanding debt. We will look at the monthly payments that you've currently got. So how does it to help to overcome existing mortgage challenges? Well, if you're with a buy-to-let lender at the moment that maybe either doesn't provide new rates, or they're porting, or not porting, product transfer options that just aren't great. Maybe the rates that they're offering at the moment are a little bit rubbish. Then it does allow you to look at other lenders and jump onto a different rate. Okay. With regards to income sources, every lender again is slightly different, as you can imagine. So diversification of income sources, we can look at personal income really from most sources, whether that be your rental income, as long as that's showing on your tax returns, whether it is your employed income, self-employed income, you could have benefit income. There's other income that we can basically take into consideration in order to look at the remortgage. So obviously that reduces your dependency on the rental income in order to raise money. And this gives you other opportunities as well, because if you can raise money, then you can still take advantage of buy-to-let in the current market. Now, yes, there's certainly landlords that are deciding to exit the market, but we've also got landlords that are entering. They are obviously going to be buying these properties and renting them out. So if you're looking to grow your portfolio, this is a really great way of doing that, because it allows you to borrow that little bit of extra money. Now, as with everything, there's also disadvantages. Now, if you've got any questions, guys, just pop them in the comments below. If I see them during this broadcast, I will try and answer them to as best as I can during this. But if you see any, if you catch up with this later, pop them in there, and I will do my best to jump on and answer them. And sometimes it's a great way of coming up with ideas for new videos. So if you pop a question on there, actually, I may do a video on it over the next sort of couple of weeks. So disadvantages, I'll try and blow this up again, make it a little bit bigger. So increased personal financial risk. Now, this is a fairly obvious one, because if you're using your income in order to borrow more money, then as a general rule, it means that if you lost that income, then you may find yourself in a position where it's difficult in order to pay the mortgage. So basically what the lender is saying is, look, the rental income on its own isn't really adding up here. So you've got to use your own personal income. So if that personal income disappears for whatever reason, then obviously that could potentially have an impact on your own personal finances, and you could then start struggle to pay sort of income yourselves, or pay your own sort of outgoings, your own mortgage, your own debts, whatever. Limited availability and lender restrictions. This is not available with every lender. You will be surprised to know. And it's got very different qualification criteria with each lender, and every lender's got their own very specific terms and conditions. And as you can imagine, just like any sort of standard mortgage, some are a little bit more so we say flexible than others. Some lenders will sort of encourage this type of lending and don't sort of put obstacles in the way. Others are can be a little bit more problematic, so just bear that in mind. Additional paperwork and verification. It's not as straightforward as a buy-to-let, but with a buy-to-let, we don't need an awful lot of documentation from you in order to do this, because we don't underwrite this based on your own income. With this, we will, so that we'll start asking for things like bank statements, like pay slips, if you're self-employed, your tax returns and everything else. So and because of all of that, and because of the way these things are underwritten, these applications do generally take longer. So there is that sort of delay that could happen, or probably will happen, with these types of mortgages. We will get there, so just bear in mind they might take a little bit longer. Now, I've added in there possible impact on tax liabilities. Now, I am in no way a tax accountant, and I've put that in there more than anything to say, go and get professional advice. I personally can't see how this makes a world of difference to how your tax return is generated, or the tax that you pay. However, I am not a tax accountant. Have a little chat with an accountant, and they can confirm that for you. Okay. So tips for navigating buy-to-let top slicing mortgages. Okay. So again, let's make that a little bit bigger. So look at your existing financial situation. If you are struggling to make make ends meet at the minute and you're struggling with payments and everything else, then maybe using your income probably isn't a good idea when it comes to raising more money, because raising more money will as you and no doubt aware, will mean that your monthly payment increases. So just bear that in mind. And again, just weigh up the potential risks and the rewards of that. Okay. Ultimately, if you raise more money, that buys you a buy to let. That gives you a bigger income. Then, maybe that risk is worth taking. You have to take your own sort of personal risk appetite into consideration for that. If you're not using a broker, I would always suggest, obviously you do use a broker for this, but if you're not, make sure you compare different lenders and different products. Now, every lender is completely different when it comes to these types of products. They've got different rules, especially based around income, what they consider to be an outgoing, what they don't consider to be an outgoing, how they treat existing buy-to-let mortgages, what evidence they need to. It's a minefield. So if you are doing this yourself, then just make sure you double check all of the requirements. Another thing I would probably say is some of the lenders that offer this are generally not on the high street, so they're far harder to come across, and some of them are intermediary only. So you do, with some of the lenders, you will need to use a broker, but there are some options kind of available on the high street that you can find. But again, thorough research is definitely required on this. I popped this in there because I know it's a bit like state the obvious, but we would always recommend that you use a professional. So have a chat with a mortgage advisor for tailored advice. Obviously, mortgage advisors that work for a bank can only tell you about that specific bank's product. So just bear that in mind. An independent advisor can give you a view of the entire market, and always have a chat with an accountant or a tax expert, whoever you want to use relating tax, because as a general rule, mortgage advisors are not tax experts. So make sure you verify that this isn't going to sort of rocket your tax bill in any way, shape or form with a tax expert. And there's other ways of doing this, right? So top slicing you should only use when you need to, because otherwise, why would you pay essentially? Usually top slicing has got a slightly higher rate than a traditional mortgage. They're not hugely different, especially at the minute. But if you can do it on a traditional mortgage, then obviously that is an option. And there's other creative financing methods. We may as well mention them. There's plenty of them around. There's plenty of experts apparently on the internet at the minute with sort of joint venture finance and, using other people's money and those sorts of things. So you should always consider the best way of doing this for you. So just to touch on fees again, this is related in any sort of professional service, really. And if you've watched any of these videos before, you'll know that this slide comes up reasonably often. And that is, you can have something cheap, you can have something good, you can have something fast, but what you cannot have is all three. As a general rule, you can only have two. So if you want something cheap and you want something fast, then generally it's not very good. If you want something fast and good, then generally it's not very cheap. You get the idea. You kind of pay for what you get. And that's it, really. So that pretty much goes through everything that I thought would be useful. So if you are looking to raise money or raise more money on your buy-to-let, then top slicing may be the idea for you. When it comes to how much income you need, that's probably the key question that I always get. It really depends on your own circumstances. Have a chat with your own mortgage broker. They can let you know exactly how it works, how it affects you, what difference it would make, and if you qualify for it in the first place. Like I said, guys, if you've got any questions, pop them below and I'll do my best to get back to you. And for now, thank you very much.